Arihanto Stuti. Any questions from last week? We talked about Acharya Sri Siddhasen Divakar. Any questions? You all understood what I was talking about. So if I ask you about Jain logic, you will be able to answer me. Okay, last week there was a request that I explain a bit more about Jain logic. So today I've included some information about logic in Jainism. But we said that he was a very, very brilliant Acharya. He was called Divakar because he was regarded as illuminating the Jain Dharma. He's credited with lots of books. Not many, unfortunately, survive. But Sanmat Tarak is his best book. And it is, there are a few acharyas who have talked about Jain logic. Original Jain logic was mentioned in the Agams, you know, the Bhagavati Sutra and the Acharan Sutra, but it was the later acharyas who explained it, who expounded it. And what we know as Anekantvad today is due to some of these acharyas, but especially Acharya Siddhasen Divakar. So I explained to you how arrogant he was, and you know, he was in this Gurukul, and then he had agreed that he would bow down to anybody who was superior in knowledge to him. And finally he met his match in the form of Vridhavadi Acharya, and you know, he was defeated, and he actually agreed then to become his Shishya. Now, he is perhaps one of the 9 prominent. Vikram Aditya, the Raja Vikram Aditya, had 9 jewels, 9 prominent personalities in his court, and Siddhasen Divakar is regarded as one of them, according to the historical works. As I said, Sanmati Tarak is his best explained, most famous work. It is still, and you know, just to tell you how important this work is, after he published this work, there has been numerous explanations, numerous translations, numerous discussions, you know, Vad Vivad, which is called in Gujarati, that is discussions on what he's talked about, Tika. All of that has been done on this work. So it's a very, very monumental work in Jain Sahitya, in our Jain literature. He's also composed many poems, and as I said, both the Digambar and Shwetambar sects acknowledge his importance, and he's been mentioned in a lot of other works. And as I explained to you, that this Syadvad Saptabhangi and Pravachan Panchastikaya Sar, Kunkun Acharya has done it. Both are brilliant works, they are readily available. I would really recommend, if you want to study the nature of the soul, Atma Su kehvaય chhe, Atma na kevi rite gun, how do you know a soul exists, then you look at some of his art. It is without doubt one of the most profound works in Jain religion. Of course, Tattva Sutra is absolutely brilliant, which was Umaswati, which was much later. Siddhasen Maharaj was about 500-600 years after Arya Swami's Nirvana. And I mentioned to you about truth and how truth is explained, and how dogma is not a good thing. And he also mentioned that all doctrines are right in their own respective spheres, but if they encroach upon province of other doctrines and try to refute their view, they are wrong. A man who holds the view of the cumulative character of truth never says that a particular view is right or that a particular view is wrong. Why would he say this thing? Sorry? Yeah, but why would he say that? Why would he say that, you know, if apne kahe ke hu je sachu ne? Even in a court of law or wherever you go, they are trying to uphold the truth. Yeah? But he says that if somebody, a cumulative character of truth, never says that a particular view is right or that a particular view is wrong. Why would he say that?
Because it is always right or wrong in perspective. in one perspective.
Yes, it is right or wrong in one perspective, but he also acknowledged that we have limited ability. Because as humans, the only way we can perceive knowledge is through our five senses and through our mind. Yeah? His lasting fame depends on his other works, the Nyayavtar, Sanmati Tarak, and of course Nyaya Shastra, which is the science of logic. Logic is an Ekantmad. Okay? Now, he is also responsible for writing this absolutely brilliant work, which is Abraham. There are 9 sacred prayers. Now Smaran કે છે આપણા જૈન શ્વેતાંબર જૈન પદમાં અને કલ્યાણ મંદિર સ્તોત્ર is one of them, the others being ભક્તામર સ્તોત્ર, of course નવકાર મંત્ર, ઓવસગહરમ, નમિયુન sutra, પછી there is Tijaipautta stotra, પછી there's quite a few. Okay, but Kalyan Mandir is regarded as again a monumental piece of work, and it's got a very interesting story. But before I share that, I just wanted to show you that there is a translation of Kalyan Mandir Stotra in English, and it is available. So if you want to read it and learn it, I think Rita was learning it with Swamiji, Shilapiji Maharaj when they were going to India recently. Acharya Siddhasen Divakar went to Avanti, which is now called Ujjain. Okay, Tyare it was called Avanti. And there he visited a Hindu temple of Lord Shiva. Now, what had happened was that Acharya Ji with Vikram Aditya Maharaj started reciting or started composing the Kalyan Mandir Stotra. And in praise of Parshvanath Prabhu, when Acharya Siddhasen composed verse 13, the idol of Lord Shiva broke open and the image of Avanti Parshvanath Prabhu appeared from the top of the Shivling or the idol. The Acharya went on composing more verses, and the result is this beautiful Smaran containing 44 verses. Bhaktamar Stotra contains similar number of verses. Bhaktamar Stotra and Kalyan Mandir Stotra have been compared in beauty. The reason why in our nowadays Bhaktamar is more widely popular as opposed to Kalyan Mandir Stotra is because in the Now Smaran there are 3 stutis dedicated to Parshvanath Prabhu. Okay, there is Namiyun Sutra, there is of course Uvasagaram Stotra, and there is Kalyan Mandir Stotra. The Kalyan Mandir Stotra is a scholarly masterpiece and contains verses which have been composed by a great poet. Both the Bhaktamar and the Kalyan Mandir have been composed in a meter called Vasant Tilak or Vasant Tilaka, as Vinod Bhai explained to you, and the way it has been done, and the tune is the same. Okay, both can be sung with equal ease. The Prabhav Charitra mentions that after Siddhasen Divakar's death, it seemed as if the sun was set and only the twinkling lights of the 5 insects remained in the southern sky, because there was a great loss when he passed away. And he has done so much for Jainism. And you know, I was just thinking, word is, you know, when you have certain personalities who appear, like we are celebrating, I think today they were celebrating Winston Churchill's death anniversary, and there was some sort of a procession there was a wreath which went around from the Tower of London to I don't know where, somewhere. And they were commemorating, and I was just thinking that Winston Churchill is so highly regarded because he helped Britain during the Second World War. These people, acharyas, these great acharyas of ours, and we are very, very fortunate, apna dharma, ke we've got these tremendous acharyas. They have done so much, because Jare Mahavir Swami, when he spoke, it was all verbal, yeah, and obviously it was codified several hundred years later. But they then took that Vani and then they analyzed it and they expounded upon it. And so what we have is this religion which was just flowering and flowering and flowering, and yet the essence of Mahavir Swami's words have never been lost. They have never been modified, or they have never, even if you look at, people argue with me that, oh, but you've got Sthanakvasis sect, and you've got Dheravasi, and you've got Digambar. But if you look at the essence, it's the same. There is no difference in what the Sthanakvasis say about Maharishi. There's no difference in what the Dheravasis say, and there's no difference in what the Digambars say. And they all agree on everything apart from just few minor points. And this is how intact this religion is, ladies and gentlemen. It is so beautiful. And when you look at works like Kalyan Mandir Stotra, you look at works like Bhaktamar Stotra, and again, he starts from humbleness, and I'm not worthy, just as Mantung Suri was doing it. And I just wanted to read you the Gatha 13 before I carry on. And he says, and this is not, this is just a translation because it's actually, and by the way, this is in Sanskrit. O Prabhu, you eliminated anger at the outset. Then how without anger did you destroy the thieves in the form of karma? This proves that forgiveness is more potent than anger. Snow or ice is much more effective as compared with fire. Now, it is just such amazing poetry. He starts off and he says, O Dev, why do you call Tarak, or one who helps a worthy across the ocean of worldly existence? Apparently, it is the devotees who install you in their pure hearts and carry you across when they cross the ocean. But now that misconception has been removed, I have understood that a leather bag filled with air floats only due to the buoyancy provided by the air inside. This indicates that beings cross the ocean of worldly existence only because you are installed in their hearts. There was so much faith and so much bhavana and so much bhakti, and that is when you can compose works like this. Otherwise you can't. If you sit analytically and you start doing it, it's very difficult. Now, I wanted to briefly, somebody came last week and said, please can you explain Anekantvad, Naivada and Syadvad? Now, we have dealt with Anekantvad in this class, but if you want further explanations, we can do another lecture, but this is something which you can do a whole series of lectures and it will still not be finished. Anekantvad states that reality has numerous aspects, or Anekant, which is non-one-sidedness, that is reality being very complex. Do we all understand that? Yeah? Naivad is a doctrine of perspectives. That means from one particular point of view, you are observing reality. Given the complex nature of reality, anything may be known from variety of nais or perspectives that correspond to its many aspects. For example, if you look outside, we will say it's dark. But if you are talking to somebody across the seas, they will say, no, it's daytime. You are both right. They are right as well as you are right. But you can't categorically say, no, it's dark, so it has to be dark wherever you are. Yeah? Syadvad, or the doctrine of conditional prediction, according to which truth of any claim that one makes about a particular topic is dependent upon the perspectives or nais from which that claim is made. So they normally use this prefix syad. So you say, if this was the case, then this would happen. If this was the case, then this would happen. Yeah? A claim can be true in one sense, or from one perspective, false from another perspective, both true or false from another, have an inexpressible truth value from yet another. So this is how, and this is called Saptabhangi. There are 7 different ways in which they are explained truth, but of course, there are so many different, but they have tried to simplify it by saying there are only 7 different ways in which you can explain. So I'm going to explain to you what Syadvad. Syadvad encourages a 7-fold way of referring to reality. Syadvad offers the following view-specific preambles when describing some aspect of the iridescent reality. Reality, as we know, reality means ke akha universe ma what is happening, your world what is happening, that is reality. Reality is not that you are sitting in Kingsbury High listening to me giving a boring lecture on Anekantvad. Reality is that there are other things also happening. So Syad Asti is in some ways something is. So, for example, if you take, say, a pot, you can say that this is a pot from this perspective. Okay, so that pot is. Syad nasti, in some ways it is not. In other ways, that pot is not a pot because the pot is not actually a pot, it is clay. Yeah, so it's not a pot, it's clay. Syad asti avatyavya. In some way something is and is indescribable. So yes, it is something brown. I don't know what it is, but it is something brown. It is there, but it is something brown, which is what clay is. Syad nasti avatyava. In some way something is not and it is indescribable. It is not a pot, and I can't describe it because I don't know what it is made of. If you do not know what clay looks like, you will not know what it is made of. Syad asti nasti avatyaka. In some way, something is not, and is indescribable. I mean, look, we can have a whole lecture on it, but I just wanted to briefly explain to you what Jain logic is. Now, the reason why Jain logic is like this is it is all to do with the experience of Samyaktva. Because when you are experiencing Samyaktva, when somebody experiences, some can explain that, okay, I experienced it in this particular way. So that is, in some things it is like that. But in something it was not like that. Okay? In some things it was like that slightly, but it was also not like that. Yeah? In some ways it was there, but I just can't explain to you because the experience was incredible. In some ways something is, it was there slightly, I experienced it, it went away, I can't describe it to you. And it was not there, I do not know, but there was something which happened, I can't describe it to you. And in some ways, it is just not describable. I do not know what it means. So the word syad comes from two roots. Syad, which means maybe, whereas vad means assertion. So placed together, syad becomes the assertion of what may be and the assertion of possibilities. So what this is trying to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, forget about all of this, is that when you are describing reality, there are so many different ways in which you can describe. Now, there is a whole thing after this which comes about how we observe reality. There is Nikshep, and Nikshep is again explained in a different way, how our senses are used, how we experience it within ourselves, in the sense that, intuitively we experience something. Some things we use our senses to describe, and remember, senses are not 100% correct. Yeah, there's always a bias involved. Whereas if you experience something intuitively through your soul, it's different. So this is what it is. Any questions? So this is what Syadvad is. So I'll go back. Anekantvad is the overall theory of multifacetedness. Naivvad is different aspects, different ways in which you can see. And Syadvad is describing the noise. Given the complex nature of reality, the fact that it can be approached from many partially, though not equally or fully correct perspectives, and the truth of our claim depends on the perspective we take. An attitude of openness and tolerance towards various views is recommended. So do not become dogmatic. The whole thing of Jain Dharma is, and you should open your mind. You should not become introverted, you should not become that, extremely rigid in your views, because rigidity will never help you flower as a soul. The blind man, by touching the elephant's leg, you know the story of the blind man, don't you? Trunks, tail, and so on attribute different opinion about the elephant, which are partially correct. They were all right. There is an ultimate truth in terms of which the claims of the blind man can be evaluated and placed in their proper perspectives.
Reality is a synthesis of opposites. This multifaceted character of reality is reflected in the definition of existence. Yeah. So they were all right. All the blind people were correct. They were all describing it, but they were describing it from their perspective. So that was their name. And they were describing it that maybe it is this, and maybe it is not that, and maybe it is this, or it is not that, or it could be this, but I don't understand it. This is how truth can be understood. And until we realize our soul, we will not. So unless we reach to a point of say, Manaparya Gnan or Keval Gnan, we cannot know the truth. We can only, therefore, it is very important that we use the agams. It is very important, therefore, that we use Mahavir Swami's Vani to explain stuff. Now I go to the next Acharya Shri, and that is Hir Vijay Suriji Maharaj. Hir Vijay Suriji Maharaj was an Acharya during the time of Akbar, during the Mughal times. Excuse me. Once Akbar the emperor was standing in a balcony of his grand royal palace, and he saw a procession in which a Shravika in a chariot was bowing to people all around and intermittently in a Vargoro. There was a Vargoro going. This was, I think, in Agra, because Akbar used to live in Agra Fort in Fatehpur Sikri. Akbar was greatly surprised at the sight and was informed that the Shravika, being a follower of the Jain religion, had undertaken a fast for 6 months, and the Jain Sangh of Agra had organized a procession to honor the fast. Champa Shravika was invited to the court in Akbar. Now, one unique thing about Mughal Empire, especially Akbar, was that he wanted to rule over India, and India at that time was predominantly Hindu. And he realized that the only way he could rule properly was to make sure that he understood different faiths. So he kept on inviting people of different faiths. He got lots of works translated into Urdu, which was his language, so that he could understand it. But this was the great thing about him, that he allowed all the various faiths to actually synthesize. And this is why India is a very, very rich country in terms of its culture, its heritage, whatever it has. And there is a very, very fascinating play at this moment playing at the National Theatre, and I would really recommend you go and view it. It's called Dara, D-A-R-A, and it is based on Dara, who was the prince of, who was Shah Jahan's son. Shah Jahan is in the guy who built Taj Mahal. And Aurangzeb was the other son, and the conflict which takes place between the two brothers for the throne of India. And it's a fascinating play. There is an amazing court scene which happens in the Islam courts at that time. It is really worth a watch. So anyway, he invited Champa Shravika to the court, and Akbar told her that it was impossible that anybody could undertake such a fast. Champa Shravika replied that it was possible because of the impact of her religion, the gods being, of course, Dev and Guru, Hir Vijay Suriji Maharaj. Akbar the emperor became interested and wanted to have detailed knowledge about the Jain religion. In all humbleness, he requested Acharya Shri Hir Vijay Suriji to come to the palace for this purpose, because he wanted to understand Jain Dharma. So there is a picture of Champa Shravika going in a Vargoro, and Akbar is in the window. And of course, there is another photo of her seeking blessings from her guru. In 1582, the emperor invited and received a Jain delegation consisting of Hir Vijay Suriji Maharaj, Bhanuchandra Upadhyay, and Vijay Sen Suriji. Jainism, with its doctrine of non-violence, made a profound impression on him and influenced his personal life. This is what Jainism did. He curtailed his food and drink and ultimately abstained from flesh diet altogether for several months in the year. This is what Akbar did, and this is actually historically recorded fact. He renounced hunting, which was his favorite pastime, restricted the practice of fishing and released prisoners and caged birds, Slaughter of animals was prohibited on certain days, and ultimately in 1587 for about half the days in the year. So can you imagine the influence that Jain Acharyas had on a whole kingdom? That he influenced Akbar, and Akbar a Farman kind. You know, there were edicts that he would release, and he would say, okay, there was no fasting. And to this day in Gujarat, especially Ahmedabad, during Paryushan, it is in the law, and there was a court case, and it's worth reading some of these court cases. And there was a court case where somebody said that, look, I think somebody had not followed that particular edict during the time of Paryushan, and somebody sued the government for not enforcing that particular law, the Gujarat Sarkar. And it is recorded that, look, since Akbar's time, this has been said that during Paryushan there will be no meat eaten in the entire state of Gujarat, but particularly in Ahmedabad. And why was it being done? It's very fascinating reading. So what he did was he sent an invitation through the Mughal Viceroy at Ahmedabad. The delegation consisting of Hir Vijay Suriji Maharaj, Bhanu Chandropai and Vijay Sen Suriji started their journey, and they walked on foot to Fatehpur Sikri and were received with great honor befitting imperial guests. So can you imagine, they walked from Ahmedabad to Agra. There he was introduced to the emperor. He defended true religion and told him that the foundation of faith should be daya or compassion, and that God is one, though he is differently named by different faiths. The emperor received instruction in dharma from Suriji, who explained the Jain doctrines to him. He discussed the existence of God and the qualities of a true guru and recommended non-killing or ahimsa. And that is why Akbar agreed. Okay? Now, a very important thing is that I wanted to bring it out, and that is the reason I put this here, is that God is one, though he is differently named by different faiths. And this is what we should always practice. We cannot say that Apro Jain Dharma is the best. There should be an acceptance of faith in Jain Dharma, but we cannot keep on proclaiming that Apro Jain Dharma is the best without us acknowledging it, practicing it, knowing it, experiencing it. Okay? We cannot also say that therefore implying that other dharmas are nowhere comparable to Jain Dharma. Because we cannot, people have been brought up in a different faith, they are following a particular way of moving forward spiritually, and we have no right to therefore say that no, this is right and what you are doing is wrong. Yes, I knew that question was coming. Parthipan, go on. Yes, and we must always recite it. Pradhanam sarva dharmanam jainam cheti shasanam. Okay, sarva dharmama pradhan છે. Okay, પ્રધાન આપણે ક્યારે કહીએ કે આપણે આપણા જૈન ધર્મને ઓળખીએ, આપણે બીજા ધર્મને જાણીએ અને પછી આપણે સમજીએ કે ના આ ધર્મ સૌથી પ્રધાન છે મારી માટે. For you it is pradhan. It doesn't mean કે say કોઈ Christianity or Judaism or Sufism or કઈ ફોલો કરતો હોય તો એ લોકો માટે પ્રધાન હોવો જોઈએ. And it doesn't imply that એ લોકોનો ધર્મ નીચો છે. That is also a form of hinsa, because hinsa is also very subtle. Because when you have arrogance which comes in, pradhanam sarva dharmanam doesn't mean that you are doing it with arrogance. And I disagree there with Praveen Pai of USA, because it does not mean that you are saying that, oh, I am the best. It doesn't say that. It says that sarva dharmama pradhan che because of various things that it recommends. But you have to understand those things, you have to internalize those things, and then you can recite and say, ke sarva pradhanam sarva dharmanam jainam cheti shasana. હા, but then that is wrong because તમારામાં જો arrogance આવે તો already તમે કર્મના ઉદય થયો ને. You are inviting karmas, negative forces to come to you. And this is something that children ને આપણે સમજાવવું જોઈએ કે yes, of course we should recite Pradhanam Sarva Dharmanam, but do not do it with pride. Do it with an understanding that જે જૈન ધર્મ છે જેના પર નભીર્યો છે, the five main pillars જેના પર નભીર્યા છે, explaining and forwarding, going further from the five pillars are the નવ તત્વસ, and નવ તત્વસમાં આખું reality સમાયેલું છે about how the soul works. Then yes, if you understand it, you internalize it, then you can say yes. But also you must understand other religions as well. It's very important for our children to know about other religions. That is where dialogue comes in. That is where understanding comes in. If you look at the world around you, a lot of religious wars have been done. It's because of dogma, of people saying that, oh, Christians say, my religion is the best and we need to convert, so crusades took place. Now Muslims say, okay, no, our religion is the best, so jihad took place. And Jains have never done fights to try and convert people or to try and force your religion down other people's throats. Never in Jain Sahitya there has never been they will defend their faith, yes, but they will never try and convert other people. Because a religion which is based on tolerance, a religion which is based on ahimsa, can never advocate this, can never do this.
Something like,
Yeah.
so, in Islam, we look at mutiny kata, from a Jainism point of view, you look at Papnat Banda.
No, I'm not saying that at all. Of course, Papa will say. Look, whether you are a Jain or not, તમે એક જીવતી વસ્તુની હિંસા કરો એટલે તમે પાપ બાંધવાનું તો તમારું થયું જ.
No, but they're going according to their faith, no?
Yeah, but their faith again needs to be understood. What was the basis on which meat has come into their faith? What basis is it that meat has come in the Christian faith? Because their Christianity and Islam, come from Abraham. Okay, and where does it come in? And why was he going to sacrifice his son? And that is where. And then God said, no, don't sacrifice your son. You have shown that you demonstrated your faith to me. You can sacrifice something else. And somebody has written in the Bible, somebody went and slayed a goat, or Abraham went and slayed a goat. We were not physically present there. It is wrong. And you cannot interpret that to say, okay, therefore it has been justified that we should be eating meat. I'm not saying the religion is wrong. I'm saying that the people who dogmatically follow a religion are wrong. And that is why I'm recommending that you go and see this play. Please. It's very important. The emperor received instruction in Dharma from Suriji, who explained the Jain doctrines, and he explained about ahimsa. He was persuaded to forbid the slaughter of animals for 6 months in Gujarat and to abolish the confiscation of property of deceased persons, the Sujicha tax, which was a tax which they imposed at that time, and a Sulka, which was a possible tax on pilgrim sites. Now, what used to happen is that when you visited, especially Palitara, there was a tax. When people wanted to move, because that was how revenues were being collected in Mughal times, so that he could build these beautiful palaces and do whatever he wanted to, and free cage birds. So basically what happened was Hirvijay Suriji Maharaj actually told Akbar that, can you please stop this? You cannot stop pilgrims from visiting their holy sites. And he actually did it. And from that day to now, obviously since that, there is no tax. He stayed for 4 years at Akbar's court and left for Gujarat in 1586, and he imparted knowledge of Jainism to Akbar and obtained various concessions to his religion. Also, the other thing that had happened was that Palitana Nadum Derasaro, as you know, ekdam shaswat che, ekdam, it's regarded in our tradition as the tirth of tirths. And a lot of the Jain temples were destroyed by the Mughals. Okay? And what Hilvichai Suriji Maharaj did was he actually reconstructed. Palitana temples have been reconstructed 3 times in their history. They are obviously very, very old, but the 3rd time was when Hilvichai Suriji Maharaj had them reconstructed, especially the Adinath Derasar, which was reconstructed during Hilvichai Suriji Maharaj's time. The emperor is said to have taken a vow to refrain from hunting and expressed a desire to live off meat eating forever as it had become repulsive. Akbar, with great respect for Jainism, also declared Amari Ghoshna, which is banning the killing of animals during Paryushan, and Mahavir Jayanti glowed back the Jazia texts from Jain pilgrim sites like Palitana, and these firmans were issued in 1590 to 1584 and 1598. And to this day, Paryushan and Mahavir Jayanti in Ahmedabad, there is total it's forbidden to have meat. Okay, any questions? You all look a bit dazed, glazed, tired. But did you not find this interesting? Now, there are so many such acharyas. There is obviously Kunkun Acharya himself, there is Umaswati Maharaj, there are so many of them worth reading about, because they've each contributed and done something brilliant for Jain Dharma. Each of them. These are just a few that we picked offhand, and we said that these are some worth mentioning, and they've all contributed towards Jain Dharma. And Approche Dharma survived Thyoche is because of people like Hilvichai Suriji Maharaj, because they affiliated themselves with various kings. As Siddhasen Divakar did it with Vikramaditya, as Hemchandracharya did it with Kumar Pal and his forebearers. So these are people who aligned with the various rulers at that time of India or in various states, and that is how this religion has survived, because those people actually then started accepting Jainism. Because remember that Hinduism was very, very strong, and there was a lot of negativity from Hinduism at that time against Jainism, because it was a revolutionary religion at that time. Yeah. So people were not willing to accept. Now, Mangal Path. And I want all of us to recite very loudly Mangal Path. And I want to hear loud, not mumbling, I want you. Please. જો ભગવાનની આપણે આમ નોર્મલી ચિલ્ડ્રનને ખીચાય તો આપણા વોઇસીસ રેઝ થાય ને, તો આપણે આ ભગવાનની ભક્તિ કરીએ છીએ તો આપણા વોઇસીસ જરાક લાઉડ હોવા જોઈએ. ચત્તારી મંગલમ હરિહંતા મંગલમ સિદ્ધા મંગલમ સાહુ મંગલમ કેવલી પરતો ધમ્મો મંગલમ ચત્તારી લોકોત્તમા હરિહંતા લોકોત્તમા સિદ્ધા લોકોત્તમા સાહુ લોકોત્તમા કેવલી પરતો ધમ્મો લોકોત્તમો ચત્તારી શરણં પ્રવચામિ હરિહંતે શરણં પ્રવચામિ સિદ્ધે શરણં પ્રવચામિ સાહુ શરણં પ્રવચામિ કેવલી પનતૌ ધમ્મં શરણં પ્રવચામિ. Now, I'll explain to you on the part. The first one, Chattari Mangalam. Okay? These four are Mangal. Who are Mangal? Arihant, Siddh, Sahu, અને કેવલી પન્નતો ધમ્મો મંગલમ કે જેણે કેવલ જ્ઞાન કરેલું હોય એ પણ મંગલ છે. ઓકે, now let me go forward. I said these are auspicious or they, so arihants have destroyed their inner enemies, so they are auspicious. Why are Siddhs auspicious? Arihant I can understand because they stay on earth and they actually impart knowledge to us. What about Siddh Bhagwans? They are free from all the karmas. Yeah, that is true as well. The Siddhs are auspicious is because Elokonic qualities we want to imbibe in ourselves. We want to become a Siddh. We want to float away into the Siddh Shila like a balloon going up in the air. We don't want to be on this earth. Yeah. So that is why the Siddhs are auspicious. Sadhus, why are they auspicious? Yes. Because એ લોકો through જ આ બધા આચાર્યજીને આપણે વાંચ્યું ને કર્યું, we've been discussing. એ લોકો through જ આપણને જૈન ધર્મ મળેલો છે. Of course, Arihants spoke, but these are the people who explained it to us, who have expounded it to us. So that is why they are auspicious. And the religion expounded by the perfect souls is auspicious. They are all walking on the path of Ratnatraya. सम्यक दर्शन, सम्यक ज्ञान, सम्यक चारित्र જાણીને અમારે મોક્ષના માર્ગે પહોંચવું છે. ઓકે, ચત્તારી લોગુત્તમા, that means આખી દુનિયામાં ઉત્તમ, લોગ ઉત્તમ. ઓકે, અરિહંતા લોગુત્તમા, that means આખી દુનિયામાં again લોગુત્તમ, અને સિદ્ધા લોગુત્તમા અને સાહુ લોગુત્તમા. Now in the world, 4 are the highest. Arihant is the highest. Now it doesn't say that Arihant in Jainism is the highest. It just says Arihant is the highest. As Hemchandra Acharya said when he was taken to a Hindu temple, ke je Ratnatraya, that means samyak darshan જ્ઞાન ચારિત્ર જાણીને જે આગળ વધ્યા spiritually pure થયા હોય એને હું bow down કરું છું. And this is what it means. Arihant is not in Jainism. It could be anybody, but who has conquered their inner enemies is highest and is worthy of my salutations. Siddh is the highest, as we rightly said, is because they have gone away to Siddh Shila and we want to endeavor to reach there. Sadhus, of course, because without sadhus who hold our hand, without the guru who takes you in the path, we cannot move forward. Now this last one is the most amazing form. Okay, Chattari Sharanam Pavachami. Okay, that means જે ચારના શરણમાં જેની હું જેના પ્રોટેક્શનમાં હું જાઉં છું એ સૌથી મને પ્રોટેક્ટ કરે છે. ઓકે, અરિહંતે શરણમ પવચામિ, સિદ્ધે શરણમ પવચામિ, સાહુ શરણમ પવચામિ, કેવલી પન્નતમ ધમ્મમ શરણમ પવચામિ. Okay, I seek refuge in the, because remember you hear you know the story of Anathi Muni. Does everybody know the story of Anathi Muni? Anathi Muni was seated meditating, and what had happened was that he in one moment he was experiencing he was a king and he was experiencing this thing that he was in his kingdom and he was fighting a particular war, and in the next moment he realizes that he is alone and he has to look at himself spiritually. And Shrenik Maharaj was passing by, and Shrenik Maharaj says that, why are you seated alone here? I can protect you, I can look after you. And Anathi Muni actually responds and says, look, even you can't protect yourself. How are you going to protect me? Yeah. and that I am actually a nath. I am without anybody, because mara nath આ ચાર જ છે. And that is true for all of us. You know, we might say that, okay, the law of the land is protecting us, or the courts of justice are protecting us, or, you know, the policemen are protecting us, or our spouses, or whoever, security, alarm security in the house is protecting us. But at the end of the day, when something is going to happen to you as an individual, there is no one to protect you. The only person who can protect you is yourself. So, Arihant is yourself. Siddh is yourself. Sadhu is yourself. This is your soul, which has the capability of protecting itself. Ani kevali panatam dhammam sharanam pavachami. Akha vishwana good vibrations come to me. જે બધા pure vibrations છે, when you recite this, they come to you and they actually build like a kavach around you. Okay, if you say it with a lot of faith. So this last one is sometimes recited on its own without the other ones. It is very powerful, and you know, we met somebody in India and they were talking about how quantum physics can be connected with this. Now I'm not going to go into that at this moment because it will just confuse you, but there is a whole theory about trying to connect nuclear physics with some of these sutras. People have written books on it. Okay. Any questions? So now we know what these prayers are, so we should be reciting it every day in the evenings. Get the children to recite it. Explain to them the meaning of this particular Mangal Path, and you know, do it with a lot of faith, because really it is very, very powerful.
Can I just add a comment in this?
Yeah.
Okay, when we see it's Arihant, Siddh and Sadhus, it sort of brings the question that Naukar Mantra ma ave che, Acharya, Upadhyaya and Sadhu, why are they omitted in this Chatramangalam? And I think one of the places where I read is that you need the essence of a Sadhu. Because even Acharya, he's reached that stage, but he started off as a Sadhu.
As a Sadhu, yeah.
Even Upadhyaya, so the basic qualities which one requires is that of a Sadhu, and then obviously you can go higher up. So the basic bottom line after Arihant and Siddh, you need the qualities of a Sadhu to progress further spiritually.
Yeah.
And then Acharyas and Upadhyayas already
Yeah,
assume,
they
already
define
assume,
it, or
they already
yeah.
within these Sadhus.
Absolutely. Yeah. And a લોકો through Guru Maharaj through, whether it is an ordinary Sadhu, or whether it is Upadhyaya Maharaj or Acharya Shiji, whoever it is, એ લોકો આપણો હાથ પકડે એટલે આપણે આગળ વધી શકીએ. એ લોકોના આશીર્વાદથી જ આપણાથી કાંઈ સ્પિરિચ્યુઅલ વર્ક્સ થાય. You know, તમે જો કે there are people even આજના જમાનામાં who do a lot of stuff, who do a lot of different types of stuff. અને એ લોકોને આપણે, there are people like us, but how do they get their internal strength to do it? અને એ કૃપા છે દેવની, that is શાસન દેવ દેવીઓ, and of course ગુરુ મહારાજની. નહીતર ના થાય આપણે. તમે કેમ એકદમ ચૂપ થઈ ગયા છો? You should feel very happy that you are part of this religion, which is so amazing. Shouldn't you? So there should be a smile on your faces.
In fact, if I may, if you want, I can give a small example on the 7 Saptabhangi.
Yes, please give.
So, just 7 Saptabhangi to, something is from a particular perspective, something is not, something is or is not. So I think one way to look at it is, who Rajiv Chu. So is that the ultimate truth? It cannot be the ultimate truth, because I wasn't Rajiv in my previous birth, and I will not be Rajiv in my next birth. So that's a partial truth. So if someone really says, Rajiv Chu, so from my soul's perspective, I am Rajiv. So that is the truth now. If someone says, Tu kon chu, I cannot say what I was in my past birth, if I did remember my past birth. That is false. So I am Rajiv in this birth here. But so that's from a particular perspective. If I knew my past birth, I cannot say I am that now. That was my past birth, that's gone. So from a particular perspective, I am not that. So I am Rajiv now, but I am not something which I was in my past birth. So Syad Asti, Syad Nasti. So I am not what I was in my past birth, or I am not what I am going to be in my future birth. I am right. So Krishna Maharaj Krishna Maharaj is going to become a Tirthankar in the future births. So he is still not a Tirthankar now. So from that perspective, he's not. But he might become a future Tirthankar whenever he becomes in the next OVC. Then if someone says something is or something is not, it really depends on time. Time has got two perspectives, something which is simultaneous or something which is going to be one after the other. So if someone says, okay, Maro Atma is permanent, my soul is permanent, that is a fact.
That's nischay.
But if I say, okay, hu Rajiv chu, ne hu mara last birth ma je chu, hu iye chu, how can that be true? I cannot be two things at the same time. I cannot be Rajiv now, and I cannot also be what was my existence in my past birth. Those two things cannot exist together at the same time. So that's indescribable. I cannot describe you what I was in my past birth. That I cannot describe the same. That what was in my past birth is something different from now. But at this very instance in time, if I have to explain you my total, who am I, Rajiv? I have to describe all about myself right now. I give you my CV of this birth, and I have to give you my total life of my previous birth. In this instant, I cannot. It's indescribable. I cannot describe what I'm going to be in my next birth. I cannot describe that
because
to you.
Because you have limited knowledge.
Yes, got limited knowledge. But to understand me as my soul, then has to have a complete knowledge. So that a Keval Gnani will know. Akho Rajiv, our first birth, our second birth, so someone in the totality of that knowledge has got that total vision, what it was in the past, what's going to be in the future. So that only is the domain of a Keval Gnani. So from our perspective, it always has to be from a particular perspective. So that's where Syad comes in. A lot of the Western philosophers have translated Syad as maybe. And that actually, a lot of the Buddhists, and they say, Jainism, you have a lot of doubts. You've got maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And there's a lot of criticism saying that your philosophy is one of doubts. And the counter argument which our acharyas have said, it's not the word Syadno translation is not maybe, but it's actually from a particular perspective. So we are not saying we are not sure of what I am. I'm absolutely sure what I am, but it's from a particular perspective. So you cannot, maybe to maybe, it should not be, the translation of Syad is not maybe. But it's like from a particular perspective. So that's where the Syad comes in. So when you go through those 7 different steps, it's different angles of looking at it. You're looking at it from what I am not, what I am and what I am not, but cannot be described at the same time. So it's I think, so that's basically just to give you a flavor that it is very relevant, but you have to,
absolutely
but
right.
you have to look at it. So when you're having arguments and discussions, then it depends what perspective are you looking at. So that's where that Nai and all that concept comes in.
Like another example is that, for example, you are a father, you are a son, you are a brother, you are a child, and if for somebody at work, you could be a colleague, for somebody in a train, you could be a co-passenger. It all depends on the situation, the time, the relationships, and yet all of that is the truth. If somebody were to describe you, they would all be true. But your child will say, no, that's my dad. And your wife will say, but no, that's my husband. And the mother will say, but no, that's my child. And the co-passenger will say, no, but he's next to me. But there are different ways. Like for example, the mother will probably know you better. Your wife will probably know you better. But your co-passenger in a train will probably say, oh, he looked like this and he was wearing this kind of a jacket. And there is that. So even further going into this, there is a way of describing certain things. And it is so amazing how descriptions are done. For example, we look at the form. Then we look at, now features suche. Then we look at, this is how they are talking. This is how they are behaving. And in Jainism, there is descriptions of all of that. And then you decide, this is what this particular form is. And the reason why they brought this is for you to recognize that samyak to asuche. That, that Ratnatraya apne kahe che, samyak darshan nani charitra, ek kharekhar suche. How do you recognize it? This is why Akhu Anekantvad, Naivad, Syadvad has been introduced, and it has also been introduced so that you also do not become dogmatic, because they accept that we have limited abilities. Okay? So I shall call it a day here, because I've got people waving at me at the back to plan for this important day.